All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Caribbean Intelligence webinar, Empowering Caribbean Companies, Data, AI, and Digital Transformation. I'm Benito Alvarez, Managing Partner at Bravinci for the Caribbean and Suriname, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. We're thrilled to have you to join us as we explore how data analytics, artificial intelligence, and sentiment analysis reshaping governance across the Caribbean. This is just about technology, guys. It's about transforming decision making, improving service delivery, and building digital capacity with our unique regional context in mind. Today's webinar is proudly presented by BlueNap Americas, Bravinci, and Cloud Carib. Some housekeeping. We are using WebEx events for today's session. Please use the Q&A and poll step at the bottom. You can search for the three dots if you don't see them. You can submit your question throughout the webinar at any time. And at the end, we have a live Q&A session. And last point, this session is also being recorded and will be available afterwards. Okay, let's meet our expert panel. We got Sergey Berendsen. He's the CEO at Bravinci, strategist focused on innovative digital solutions tailored for the Caribbean. Eamon Shai, Senior Director for Public Sector at Cloud Carib, expert in secure sovereign cloud technology and AI for government transformation. And last but not least, the lady in the house, Sandra Wennemers, data architect and partner at Bravinci. She is responsible for education and she brings deep experience in applied data and governance innovation. Okay, Sergey, maybe you can give us a brief overview of Bravinci and how that all works.
Yeah, thank you, Benito. And I'm thrilled to be here at the webinar, and I hope we have a nice session. So Bravinci is actually a really cool company that is founded in the Netherlands and has a really social entrepreneurship model. So we've been working in data analytics, business intelligence for the last 30, 40 years. And we are now founded Bravinci a couple of years ago by all senior people that are thrilled to give back something to the community. That's why, as a social engaged company, we like to start up data analytics, strategic intelligence expertise in the Caribbean and in Suriname. And we want to work with local entrepreneurs and clients so to keep the value into their economies. The way we do it is obviously we help our clients with the expertise that we've built over the years on business intelligence, on strategic intelligence, and artificial intelligence. But we want to invest into the communities and make sure that smaller companies and other environments have access to our expertise and our tools and our solutions, but they can run them locally.
Okay, great. Hey, Eamon, maybe you can also give us some impression of Cloud Carib.
Eamon, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Cloud Carib is a managed service provider based here in the Caribbean with headquarters currently in Nassau, Bahamas. We've been in operation since 2011, and we have both commercial and government clients across the region. In addition, because we are a managed service provider, we have our own cloud infrastructure, which is hosted again across the Caribbean region, which we focus on, and in Latin America. We host applications and data for our clients in our own cloud, but we also have hybrid cloud solutions and manage organizations' private clouds for them. In addition, we provide managed backup and disaster recovery services, as well as business continuity services. And this includes, because we are in a hurricane belt, off-island backup and disaster recovery. One of our core provisions is cybersecurity, not only for our own infrastructure, but we also provide things like managed firewall services and additional cybersecurity services to our clients. Everything we do is backed up by a range of internationally recognized certifications, which include ISO 27001, SOC 2 Type 2, and CSA Star 2. And additionally, our engineers individually have over 400 certifications across 40 different technologies. We also run a command, control and communication center known as C3 from 2 locations, one in Bahamas and one in Greece. The unit monitors and resolves issues in all of the areas that we manage for our clients, including our own infrastructure and theirs, on a 24/7, 365-day basis to ensure that we meet our service level agreements that our clients expect. So Benito, that is Carib in a nutshell.
Thank you, Eamon, for this good description of Cloud Carib. Now let's move over to our first discussion topics. And I think this one is for Sandra. The question is, Sandra, it's all about data sovereignty and Caribbean cloud strategy. But the question I have, you see a lot of many Caribbean organizations have moved their IT and data to the US cloud providers, exporting their capabilities and diverting investments away from their own island communities. Is this a smart move, or are there better alternatives? What's your take on this?
Thank you, Benito, for the question, and really like being here. So thank you. In regards to my answer, let me start with the fact that it's most definitely providing a quick start to companies to create more data. Not only making it easier to start, but also lowering the entry fee. And when your system, organization, and data grow, you can rely on the scalability provided by your cloud provider. Just a few of the many advantages that make cloud in general a smart decision. If you're not only creating data, but also using it to transform it into intelligence, it will enable your company to arise above gut feeling and improve decision making. Data showing what actually happens instead of what you think is happening. And based on this pattern, you can become more proactive and, for example, identify service bottlenecks before clients complain. But Serge and Eamon will most definitely talk more about some of these money-making use cases you can accomplish with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
All having in common that you need data and processing power to do it. Starting with the processing power, we already mentioned that scaling up is easy, but there's also a downside to this. We see many complaints in regards to unpredictable cloud bills, most of the time because they have been working on gut feeling and are now surprised. So not surprisingly, my advice would be to use your data analytic capabilities on your cloud usage data so you can make it more predictable. Although I have to admit that some of the US pricing models can be really complex, so it's not an easy task. In regard to the data, we see a lot more uncertainty towards the security and the availability of your data, especially in US clouds. More and more companies and governments are currently rethinking the US cloud strategy. And well, this offers, of course, a window of opportunity for local cloud providers. This could most definitely be an alternative to US clouds, bringing more advantages than you might think of. It will make sure that you keep the value in your community. And with value, I mean building up knowledge within your community, creating jobs, but also keeping the money inside the community. In theory, we also have other alternatives going back on-premise. We had the private clouds or maybe a hybrid approach, but I think that's much too detailed to dive into right now. As a final note, I would like to advise to put some effort in what-if analysis when creating your cloud strategy. So in case you lose access to the cloud or need to migrate to another cloud or even want to migrate back to premise, are you able to restore a backup of your data outside of your cloud? Or are you fully locked in and willing to take the risk with your data? I think that's definitely a thing to consider and to plan for.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. That's a really interesting point that you are mentioning there. Sergey, what are your thoughts on this data sovereignty challenge?
Yeah, it's interesting. The world has changed. What we thought was a safe bet, it's hard to rely on. And we see we see this in the Netherlands as well. We see huge decrease in capabilities of running infrastructure, running security, data governance, FinOps, all these very important IT capabilities. We're losing it to the hyperscalers. That also means he becomes more and more dependent on a foreign company where you put your trust. And the first bankruptcy from a company hit by sanctions by the US government is already a fact, locking out Microsoft servers, not just data, but locking out Microsoft servers. And if you don't have access to your data, you're bankrupt. You're technically bankrupt. There's no way around it. So I'm not here to say, oh my God, this is a terrible thing to happen. But you need to consider the alternative. And nowadays, I mean, I'm an old guy. I'm in my 60s. I've seen a lot of stuff, and we were really happy with the cloud. But now, local solutions are up there as well. They're more predictable in cost. They're very functionally rich. So now we have alternatives. Now we have the opportunity to start building our economy in our community, getting meaningful careers locally. So we have choices now. So my advice would be, consider this as a real solution. It's not more expensive. I had a benchmarking company, and cloud is on average, I mean, look at Microsoft. They're making 26% revenue profit on their cloud operations. No infrastructure company will make more than 7 or 8% on revenue, on profit on their infrastructure business. So they're making a lot of money. And for me, it's time that we should consider bringing that money back as well.
Okay, thank you. Ima, this sounds like a real serious topic to me around the data repatriation. What's your take? Can you give us a brief comment on that?
Well, let's say from Cloud Carib's perspective, we've always supported and promoted the principle of sovereign cloud, and by extension, data sovereignty, sovereign-based applications, and now sovereign AI. And it has been kind of alluded to the overreach of US legislation like the Cloud Act and the Patriot Act, and the general dependence on US-based service providers, coupled with the current geopolitical, as already mentioned, turmoil, has, I believe, demonstrated the need for countries to consider de-risking and treating national ICT policy increasingly in terms of national security. And that includes data, particularly sensitive data like personal identifiable information. And again, as Sergey had alluded to, the US hyperscalers, they estimate, in an estimate is that they host like almost 92% of what's called Western data. So like European, North American, Caribbean, Latin American data. And we often hear the term data is the new oil. So who's refining this oil? Who's getting the value-added monetization from it? So we can see a reflection of this in the current fight in Europe for the US hyperscalers to try to adjust their position to say we are sovereign, we're providing sovereign solutions in Europe. So there must be a reason for that. It's clear there's a value proposition for them to access and monetize data from other sources. And just generally on this topic, I would like to mention we did a recent webinar called David and Goliath, Fighting Digital Colonialism. And we go into more depth into not only who has access to the data hosted, especially if it's outside your jurisdiction, but also how simple, again, and Sergey alluded to this, how simple it is for an executive order to be signed by the US president that can cut off an organization from its operational environment, not only from its data, but also from its applications environment, especially if it's hosted in one of the US hyperscalers like Office 365, financial accounting platforms, etc. And we know also for the issue of sovereignty, it's becoming a much greater topic. We see in the European Union a big push for EU digital sovereignty. We would never have thought about this 5-6 years ago, that this would be something that would be really on the horizon. And there's an allocation of billions of euros in projects to enhance EU sovereignty. And I would say for the Caribbean, we will be facing the same issues as the EU is currently facing or will face, primarily because our data privacy legislation in the Caribbean is modeled on EU GDPR. So whatever issues the EU are having, the Caribbean will have it. I guess the difference is that the EU has a lot of money to put at this, whereas the Caribbean maybe not so much. So we have to think smarter and think more nimbly, I would believe. So I think the Caribbean should regionally have a similar call to action on sovereignty. And clearly, the issue globally of sovereignty is on the rise. From my understanding, it is expected that the sovereign cloud market will grow between 27 and 29% per year on year over the next 10 years. So it is becoming a critical issue.
Okay. Thank you, Iman. So good points. So we got to learn from what's happening in the AU, in the Caribbean, and try to model that. All right. I'm going to move on to the next topic, and that's all about sovereign AI implementation. I'm going to stay with you, Iman. How is Cloud Carib approaching the implementation of sovereign AI in the Caribbean?
Well, basically, we have a similar approach as we do for general cloud services. So that is in jurisdiction, compliance with local data privacy laws, and also the concept of local ownership of the data and what comes out of it. In addition to that, there is something else that has, let's say, formed our approach on implementing sovereign AI. In the New Scientist magazine, they recently published an article about AI hallucination, and the title was AI hallucinations are getting worse and they're here to stay. And that's because many of the large language models, such as the ChatGPT and Gemini and others, are being trained on data sets that include AI generated content, which itself may already contain inaccuracies and biases. And this creates this kind of a feedback loop into which flawed data then propagates through AI systems and amplifying the errors, and that could ostensibly undermine the reliability of AI generated insights. And this is very important when you think about if AI is used in critical decision-making processes like public policy, strategic planning, etc. This hallucination issue becomes critical. So from our point of view, the way to avoid hallucination and bias is to deploy sovereign AI platforms. So like Sovereign Cloud, these platforms are in jurisdiction and can be ring-fenced to keep it from the outside data noise, let's call it that. And sovereign AI platforms can be deployed using internal organizational data on which the LLMs can be trained. And our approach in that regard is to focus on specific use cases to solve specific business process bottlenecks or process enhancements. And we would do this by focusing on utilizing discrete data sets, which are already known to the user community of that organization. So they have an expectation of the data that they're using. And then they also have an understanding of what they should have as the output from the AI support. So discrete models, data sets, and expectations that can be managed based on the knowledge of the data that's being input. This is, with the hallucinations, this term garbage in, garbage out is a classic data analytics term. So if you have a confidence in the data going in, you should have a confidence on what's going to come out of it. Also, it is our belief in our approach on this is that if you use discrete data sets, it also allows you to match the appropriate AI infrastructure. And this should allow for a significantly reduced hardware cost, including considering which models to use, which require, for example, less GPUs, maybe require a combination of GPUs and CPUs. So you get an opportunity to tailor your environment to suit the needs. And it also may determine how fast you need a response. You can determine that as well. Does it have to be instantaneous? or in some cases, if a problem is solved in 1 or 2 minutes, that might be acceptable, particularly if it provides an accurate result that may have taken a half a day to generate manually. So all of these things we take into factoring when we do a use case approach to a sovereign AI issue.
All right, thank you. Totally agree on that with you. It's very important to have a good data if you're starting with AI, and many companies forget that. Hey, but can you maybe you are talking earlier about some use cases that Cloud Carib is currently working on in the field of sovereign AI. Can you provide more details on these projects?
I certainly can, and I think it's important to say that at the moment these are kind of proof of concepts. They're not deployed in production. I think that's important for me to say that at the beginning.
Yes.
But we are developing a product which we will call SAIGE, S-A-I-G-E, which is Sovereign AI for Government Efficiency. And this is really relying on what I've just mentioned about using an organization's data and mining that data internally to generate outputs. The ministry, we were using it for a government ministry that has to generate a lot of cabinet papers, briefings, and speeches. So importing and ingesting their data would allow them to more efficiently create cabinet papers. So let's say an officer could ask it to create a paper on a particular subject, and that would be based on the knowledge base that the LLM has on the data that's ingested, which is all internal organizational data. So not only documents, but also email data and also information of transcripts from audio files for particular conversations. And we've done that, I must add, in concert with an application called Nextcloud. Now that is an application that is in production. It is a sovereign alternative and replacement of Microsoft 365. It's developed by a German company. So we're using that as part of our proof of concept and connecting our AI environment to Nextcloud. Basically, this means that you create documents in a sovereign environment, they're stored in a sovereign environment, and then they're ingested into a sovereign AI platform for use internally. And one of the good points of Nextcloud is also that there is a product called Nextcloud Talk, which is the equivalent of Microsoft Teams, but everything, all the transcriptions and all the recordings of the audio files are stored locally and not in Azure or in a third-party environment. So you have complete control over your collaboration environment and the data you generate, and then how you use that data internally in your sovereign AI platform. So these are a combination of two things that we are operating together for one ministry. Out of this, we have developed a calculation that we think that this could augment staff by up to 30% if fully implemented and fully used to its capacity. The other area that we're looking at now, we're working with an entity in Trinidad and Tobago. It is in the educational field and looking at how a sovereign AI can support students, particularly when you have a teacher in a class of maybe 30 plus pupils. The teacher can't always give the individual training and individual focus on each student. So how can we use AI to augment and help support individual students? So what we're looking at the moment is the CXC Common Entrance Level examination, which CXC is the Caribbean examination board, and they have a mathematical syllabus for children that are around 12 years of age, going from primary to secondary. So we're looking at that mathematics syllabus to see how we can use a sovereign AI environment to help teach children step by step how to solve these problems, especially those children who may be having difficulty understanding the concepts of algebra or whatever it might be. So we're working on that as a POC at the moment. So they're the areas, specific areas we're working on.
Yeah, real cool developments I hear. I think if I go back to my school time, I think I would be happy if I had an AI for my mathematics, because
Me too. Trust me, me too.
hey, but looking at the future, are you having also AI use cases already on the roadmap?
Well, let's say for Cloud Carib, it's you know, we're dipping our toe into the AI environment, and we're really focused on specific use cases. I mean, for example, the one I mentioned about the ministry, which was the initiation of us getting involved with AI, came from somebody saying to us, we have this problem. Do you know how to solve this problem for us? Which is beyond our traditional operational environment. But we went and we've investigated, and we started then to find, we can find these solutions. I think for me, there's maybe 3 areas that I would look at in the Caribbean. One is tourism. The other one is culture. And then the next one, which is more obvious, I guess, is natural disaster risk reduction. And I think these 3 areas do offer an opportunity for using AI in a sovereign AI environment to facilitate better knowledge, better management, and better control over the environment. As a matter of fact, there was actually a UNDP seminar here in Barbados, where I'm based, on AI and cultural, and how to use AI to support the control of intellectual property, for example, in the cultural field. So I think sovereign AI can certainly help in that environment, because you can ring fence and control how the information is manipulated and what comes out of it. Certainly on the area of natural disaster, being able to collect information from various sources and to do AI modeling and the like is something that should be very important. But I think on the final point on this, I would say, rather than the technology and the use of AI, I think we would also have to have the concept of a regional holistic approach to how we implement things like tourism AI, cultural AI, and natural disaster AI. And I'm happy to say, although it's beyond the scope of this discussion, that at Canto, Cloud Carib and BlueNap, representing the Caribbean Data Center Association, will be signing an agreement with a European-based organization, GIA-X, to create the first GIA-X hub and clearinghouse in the Caribbean, so that we can have this trust and capacity to share data across the Caribbean in a trusted environment. And I think this will be something that will be very important to add on to the whole area of sovereign AI and sovereign cloud.
That's some good news. Thanks to hear that. Congrats. Sandra, if you hear that, what are your thoughts on these potential applications?
As Bravinci partner responsible for education, of course, I was already familiar with avatars used for education, and I really love it because people are diverse. We don't always learn in the same ways. Some people need to read, some people need to get it explained. Usually it's not just one time explaining, but multiple times. And I do feel that artificial intelligence can help enormously. You also see some robots appearing on places to teach people and create awareness on stuff, well, that we all need to know about. So especially that one, I've seen it before and I really like it. And I truly believe in it, not being a replacement for me as an educator, but really as a surplus to me as an educator.
Okay. Before we move to the next topic, Sergey, I just want to hear also a short, brief thoughts about this topic from your side.
Yeah, it's an exciting times. And I like the way Cloud Carib is approaching this opportunity. We see similar approaches in Europe as well. I work also a lot in the Middle East. There are dangers with using public AIs. So having a sovereign AI is a great way forward, moving your AI in a controlled environment. And like you said, it's all about the data. If you garbage in, garbage out, hallucination is a real issue. But the exciting part is, I see so many AI solutions at clients that really enhance services, that really enhance the way we work together. So it's not about losing jobs. I think it's more, at the moment, what I see, it's not about losing jobs. It's actually creating jobs, but also creating better services and better solutions for everyone. So especially if you're on a tight budget as an organization and a government agency, if you're on a tight budget and you can implement AI, that can really help the story about the teachers, but also in social services and everything else. AI can be a really exciting environment. So I'm looking forward to this era.
Okay, great, thank you. I see that we have a question under our chat, but we will take this question at the end of the session. So thank you already for raising this question. I'm going to move to the next topic, and it's all about social media strategy and sentiment analysis. Then I want to reach out to you, Sergey. Social media is becoming a force of nature. Very successful companies and government are using social media already to their advantage, sending and listening. If organizations are still not using this strategically and operationally, how can they start? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so let me set the scene first. This webinar is about Caribbean intelligence. And when I talk about intelligence, it's about data analytics within your organization, but it's also about data analytics outside your organization. And how do you bring this together and make sense of it all to make sure you can do something with it? So when we talk about data from outside, it's about strategic intelligence, but it's also about social media listening. So of course, it's very important to have good data on your internal processes and everything, on your performance and everything else. But if you're not listening to what's happening outside of your organization, you're probably missing out a lot of opportunities. And here's the reality. Your clients are already talking about you. They're talking about your services. They talk about your policies. They're talking about your decisions, whether you're a government agency or you're a commercial company. The question isn't whether they're talking. The question is whether you're listening. And increasingly, traditional feedback, like surveys, town halls, phone calls, I mean, are they really expressing their real opinions? Is everybody going to these surveys? Is everybody going to that? When we look at social platforms, the users feel more comfortable expressing their opinions, and they're more authentic in their expression. And if you can create a feedback loop, then you create a massive opportunity. And it happens in real time, right? This is something that happens in real time. So we have examples of, for example, Shell, the huge oil company. And I'm not saying, of course, there's social media listening, but if there's an oil spill somewhere in the Amazon, this organization is so big, it will probably take 3 weeks before it reaches the board of directors. The spill might be mismanaged, and terrible things could have happened. By social media listening, you pick up what people are saying in that community, in that Brazilian local community. And in the board of directors, they can start taking actions against it, making sure all the appropriate measures have been taken, even PR actions. But let's hopefully stop the spillage and clean up everything that's being lost. So by listening creates enormous opportunities. And this is why Bravinci has designed something what we call the strategy command center. This strategy command center, it's a solution, but it's also a concept. The concept is what I just said. On the left side, all the data from internally, all the reports, all the information that you get from your internal company. And on the right side, you have all the data from outside, from your competitors, from your clients, from your employees, but because your employees are talking about you outside the company as well. And this is not about surveillance. This is about listening. This is about transformation. So when you start listening what's happening outside of and inside of your company, you probably start moving, transforming from a firefighting mode to a prevention mode. And instead of waiting for problems to escalate, you can address them before they become major problems. So social media reveals early warning signs, and it allows you to correct course immediately. And actually, if you start responding to that, the community will probably give you lots of positive feedback as well. If you acknowledge what's happening around you, you create a circle of engagement. And these real-time insights become very valuable and can help you change your course very quickly and very responsive. And this value that you create, it's not about major improvement. We talk about digital transformation on a later base, which is massive improvement. But by using listening as a model for your organization, then suddenly micro changes can have effect. And we've lots of clients that are using this. And it's not about setting up the tool. Of course, you can set up a tool, and there's a tool with a budget for everybody. You have free tools that you can do tomorrow. For example, Google Alerts. But you can also work with other tools like Hootsuite and everything else. And as you move in the maturity for social media listening and strategic intelligence, then you will probably make another step toward more professional tools with AI-powered analysis and automated alerts and even interpret emojis and stuff like that. For us, my advice would be start doing that. Just start. Set up a physical room, a real room with some screens, and start a process with people. The tool will provide you with insights. Make sure that the lessons you learn, if there is a comment from a client on a service, make sure the help desk, the service desk is contacted to react to that. Reach out to them online. You can do that. So you can start doing that. As soon as it becomes effective, start using frameworks for this. You start using intelligence frameworks because you can now embed it not only in your service management, but you can embed it in your strategy analysis and make sure that you combine that.
Okay. So the big takeaway, just start doing it. Start tomorrow.
Start tomorrow. And be ready to adjust your organization, because listening is not about hearing it. Listening is about actively trying to understand what's being said and then act on it.
Okay. Sandra, real brief, what are your thoughts on social media strategy?
I really love Serge talking about listening, and I think it sounds really like a human thing. And of course, at the end, a human will probably take action after they interpreted what they are hearing. But in this era of information overload, it is difficult to listen at the right places. So we need some automation, we need some alerting, we need help to make sure that we don't drown in this information overload. So I fully agree on listening, and I think artificial intelligence will help us to not drown in the information overload I see there.
Okay, thank you. Quick from your side, Eamon, your perspective as well.
I think it's, as Sergey was saying, I think it's a very important aspect, and certainly it can help improve decision making by getting a sentiment understanding of what people are really thinking and saying and speaking about from a policy perspective or whatever is the issue. So for sure, it adds value to the decision making capacity of organizations, understanding the sentiment of how their actions are impacting on people external to the organization.
Okay, thank you. Oh, we're going to move to the next topic. This is our last topic, and that's about digital transformation, success factors. Sergey, digital transformation is certainly a buzzword, huh? We hear it all the time. But what makes a digital transformation truly successful, and what lessons can you share with us?
Yeah, thank you. So transformation, and there's a nice segue with social media listening, because social media listening enables you to make micro changes. And as you add those micro changes, it might go very quickly in improving your services and everything else. But digital transformation has a slightly bigger view. It's about redesigning how you want to work, what you want to be. So in one sense, a lot of the digital transformation that I've seen is about technology. And that sobering statistic, 70% of digital transformation fails. And I've done many digital transformations in my life. For example, I worked for a huge insurance company, and we had physical insurance officers, and people would go to the office there and get an insurance. As digital working progressed, we lost a lot of money. Everything was too expensive. So we had to go to a fully touchless insurance model where all our clients would be online. And nowadays, I'm talking about 10 years ago, nowadays, everybody feels that's more than normal to get an insurance online. But in 10 years ago, at least in the Netherlands, it wasn't that common. So there was a real transformation. It changes the entire way you work and how clients interact. And clients loved it. They loved it because suddenly they have everything online. They're fully in control. They don't have to travel to get their insurance done. They can compare prices and everything else. But it wasn't about technology. Of course, the IT was very difficult. It was cutting edge technology, and it gave us lots of headaches. But in the end, it was all about the human transformation. How do you get clients to change behavior by providing services that are so good that people will automatically start using it? But services are people. And in digital transformation, we shouldn't forget that change is about people. It's about the human transformation. And too many organizations don't have a safe environment where people can express their opinions. People who are in the help desk, in the service desk, who are at the desk meeting with clients, people who are working together to solve problems. They know exactly what improvements should be implemented. So again, it's all about listening, about what the people suggest you should do. These people have been around for ages in your company, and they know exactly what the processes are. And they already know a lot of stuff that can be improved. So unless you're doing a completely turnover on the process, it's also about involving people. And if the people don't understand it, they won't use it and they won't see the value. So it's change management, as this process is mostly called, isn't just a nice to have. It's a foundational element. So if you want to do a digital transformation, listen to your people, involve them in the design phase, and then get the tech guys to design the technology around it. And if it's a complete application, that's fine. But it's all about people and setting that up, which also means the best digital tools enable completely new ways of working that weren't possible manually. And so nowadays we see AI coming up, and in digital transformation, it's all about integrated processes, integrated applications. They forget about the AI. So when I talk to clients about digital transformation, I first try to talk to them about business service architecture, not an application architecture. An application architecture is going to some supplier with an application and its processes, and that can be a solution. I mean, if I'm a finance officer, fine, give me the finance system, and I'm happy because it ticks all the boxes and I will work with it. But if you want to really transform your organization, you have to look broader than just the application architect and start with the business services. And you have to break down departmental silos. If you keep doing transformation within a silo, you're missing a lot of opportunities.
Okay, Sergey, those are really valuable points to address. Thank you. Eamon, what is your experience? What's in your experience the most important element when we talk about digital transformation?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say everything that Sergey said, I fully agree with. I was thinking, I was writing down a couple of notes here, and I was saying it must not be technology that's looking for a problem or a solution.
Yeah.
So you got to ask, why are you transforming? What are you transforming? What's the outcome? What's the impact? And then you apply the appropriate ICT solution, whatever that might be. It can't be the ICT solution looking for a problem to solve. I think that's the simplest way I could put it. So yeah, I think what Sergey was saying was right on the money.
Okay, great. I think also, Sandra, maybe you have also some thoughts about digital transformation success.
How surprisingly, I also fully agree. I do want to add that we all must be aware that it's a people process, and some people like change. Me, for example, I love to think about things that people say it's not possible. That triggers me to maybe create something technically or get an idea to make it work, or at least envision how it could work, especially when people say it's not possible. But be aware, not everybody is like that. So when you really want to go through a transformation, you usually start with a small group, define the transformation, envision the transformation, make people enthusiastic to follow you. And then that last part of people, which is actually quite a bunch of people that don't like change, will have to follow because you're all on the other side of the bridge. So be aware, not everybody likes change, but at the end, everybody needs to tag along. It's a challenge for sure.
Thank you, Sandra. And with that saying, we are now at the point of our question and answer. So if you have some question, please raise them in the question and answer possibility, and then it will be popped up. But we got one first one, and I'm going to ask them to the group, and feel free to answer that. I don't know who wants to take this one. So what is your strategy related to ESG in context of AI? And audience, thanks for this question.
Well, I don't mind starting off on this one, because to be blunt about it, that's an entire subject and webinar on its own. So it's very difficult to give a short answer to the question. But at least from the point of view of Cloud Carib, let's say, I did mention on the environmental part, the platform part, if you operate on discrete data sets and you have a focus on a use case, you don't need a massive big infrastructure of GPUs running in data centers, generating lots of heat and stuff like this. You can have we have a relatively small platform that does the job, and it's a mix of GPUs and standard CPUs. So it's about focusing on use cases and building the infrastructure to meet that use case, and not building a massive infrastructure. So that's one thing I would say on environment. On the social aspects then, on the bias and fairness, it's why we were talking about sovereign AI in the first place, is that we're ingesting the local data, ingesting organizational data and using it. The one thing I didn't mention actually when I was talking about the educational proof of concept that we're working on, one aspect that we're actually working on is to generate let's say a teacher bot that's going to be speaking with a Trinidadian accent, and not with a European, American, whatever accent, because culturally you got to provide that cultural context. And I think that's part of the social part of the ESG. How do you remove bias, hallucination? How do you give context to a particular culture and environment? And that's why we have been promoting the sovereign AI. On the governance part of it then, okay, as we say, sovereign AI, we want to be under jurisdiction and in control of local legislation. I think there's a lot of work to be done there, generally speaking, anyway, hopefully at a regional level. And also when I mentioned the GIA X thing, I did that because it is a framework of international standards and a way to build trust relationships on how to manage sensitive data and exchange data across jurisdictions, etc. So there are things that we're already looking at here, but certainly in the region, we need to look at AI governance as a regional strategy. That would be my take on the question.
Okay, thank you, Eamon. Sandra, maybe your take on this?
Well, I already mentioned the computing power and Eamon as well. So there is computing power needed, and environmental wise, you have to know what you're doing and be aware of it, and not just using it and doing stuff because of the fact that you would like to do AI. So make sure it's worthwhile and you're putting an effort into something that does help, because even for environmental problems, collecting data, training models, it could be of a help. Yeah, so yes, it costs computing power, which is not good for our environment, but it can also help breaking down environmental challenges and, well, finding solutions to them. And last but not least, on the social area, I had a conversation lately with a guy in regards to AI. And when you look at a couple of years ago, they said, well, and AI is never going to replace humans. I still think that. But one of the reasons was actually because, well, they can't socialize. They don't show any emotion. They lack a lot of stuff there. And the fun thing is that recent analysis and investigation showed actually that when a patient has a very bad disease and, well, the doctor explains him about the disease, and that, well, you can do that with a doctor, or you can help AI explain what the person has and how to deal with it. And in later notice, when they asked the patients, well, what do you prefer, the doctor telling you this or the AI telling you this, they actually said, well, I felt much more comfortable with the AI. It took more time. It felt more like a social interaction than actually the doctor telling me the diagnosis. So in regards to social stuff, I was also thinking about that, well, what we thought a couple of years ago AI could never do, it can, well, now actually do it in certain occasions. So not everywhere, but in some occasions, it can, even on the social part, be of help.
Okay, thanks, Sandra. Sergey, if you still have 1 minute, because we are at the closing part, so please, one short notice from your side.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both speakers, but I want to turn it around. I think ESG is a serious subject at any local community, at an island level, but also in a local community level. So I think AI can actually assist, and data analytics, in getting more responsible ESG. It's very difficult for local governments to properly oversee anything that's happening in the community. And I think AI and large data analytics can actually assist in understanding what's happening both on social as and environmental, and providing solutions to that. I know in Europe, there's a huge chain of responsibility for international companies, making sure all the suppliers need to comply to all these ESG rules. It's probably not happening in the Caribbean, but having insights in what's happening environmental and social and governance type of insights for local communities, maybe not even government, but communities, can be very valuable. So it's a bit of turnaround on the question, maybe, but
I'm gonna interrupt you on that because we have still one question, and I really want to push that through. Let me see if I get that on the screen. Yes. This question also for the whole panel. Has there been any private or public interest in this tech from the real estate community in Barbados? I think this one is for you, Eamon.
Well, I'll be blunt about it. We have not engaged the real estate community in Barbados on this matter. Our proof of concept initially was focused at the time is focused on government area and aspects. But if this person is working in the real estate community and would like to reach out and contact me, I'd be very happy to have a discussion, because there is certainly possibilities for using AI in real estate.
Okay, good. You can always reach out to the people in the panel that I want to say. Just feel free to do that. All right. I'd like to thank the panel for your answers and sharing your topics on that. If there are questions still, of course they can be asked, and we can answer on that. And I want to thank the audience for joining us. And yeah, see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benito.